And we're back. Unfortunately, we actually do not have any of the members of the Potatoes. We thought they were going to be able to be with us today, but they were busy. The schedules conflicted a little bit. So we're just going to go ahead and take care of this draft analysis on our own. So going through their draft, first and foremost, we have the Rapid Strike Urshifu G-Max form. We have Excadrill, Togetic, Gigalith, the Galarian Slowbro, Type Null, the Unova Darmanitan, Drapion, the Alolan Executor, and Wooloo. Now, we gave them a A- for the synergy grade here. We really liked the budget sand, in quotes, that they have with the Gigalith, the Excadrill, and then the Togetic that they got here. We really like the G-Max Urshifu Rapid Strike. It's going to be really good in multi-battle, in our opinion, because of the fact that you're only going to have 3 turns of Dynamax with 6 Pokemon on the field. You're going to have a lot more opportunities to really clean up in the late game. We have a Trick Room mode with the Galarian Slowbro, and you also have the Alolan Executor as well that does pretty well in Trick Room. And then you have the Darmanitan, Drapion stuff that really cleans up in the mid game. So while typically we like to see the things like a Fire Water Grass Core that really benefits, even though I believe is Slowbro water now, the Galarian Slowbro, or is it just Psychic?
Psychic Poison.
Psychic Poison. So it's not, yeah. So they have no real water types here. They really don't bring anything out like that. And as far as the Steel Dragon Fairy Core, the Alolan Executor is kind of a dragon. It's really doesn't do much outside of Trick Room. It's kind of a weird dragon if you're gonna have one there. So, but we still really liked just the team comp in general with the budget sand, with a lot of the different typings that they have here. Their offensive typings are very balanced. So we went ahead and gave them an A- on that.
Threat level, we knocked them down just a little bit to a B+. We still think their team is very threatening. The G-Max Urshifu, always a big threat, especially breaking through Protect, whether you're Dynamaxed or not. The budget sand here, it's kind of budget sand, but not really. I mean, Gigalith obviously is not as good as Tyranitar, generally speaking, but it's a great sand setter. It's got a lot of bulk. It has a 25 base speed, so that'll allow it to outspeed a lot of those kind of standard base 30 Pokemon that like to set up Trick Room or sweep in Trick Room. It'll even move before Hatterene in Trick Room, which may end up coming into play. They have somewhat of a Trick Room mode even aside from Gigalith. They do have 2 Trick Room setters in Galarian Slowbro and Alolan Executor. Slowbro with that new ability, especially if they want to slap on a Quick Claw with it, that could be threatening in all kinds of situations, whether Trick Room is up or not. Darmanitan it obviously has crazy damage output with Sheer Force Flare Blitz. And even something as unassuming as Drapion can be pretty threatening with if you want to set up a Swords Dance or even go for the critical hit set with a Sniper ability and Night Slash and Cross Poison. That one, critical hit sets are not exactly super reliable. And of course Drapion it doesn't have the benefit of something like Crit Kiss. It's not going to be max airstreaming to get its speed up, so that may hinder it a little bit. But there were a couple of areas where some Pokemon were not as threatening. I'm personally not super convinced that Executor is going to be a big threat. The only thing I think it was really used for in VGC was back in 2017. I saw some Z Trick Room sets with that increased accuracy and Sleep Powder, but we don't have that anymore in Generation 8, so I'm not really sure exactly what it wants to do. Seems like a bit of a lackluster Pokemon, but I'm curious about what they want to do with it, why they drafted it, what kind of threats it can provide here. Type Null, I'm pretty skeptical of. I don't really know what it's doing here. It doesn't really seem that threatening to me. There's lots of things that Silvally can do that Type Null can't. Its move pool is surprisingly shallow. Not that they should have drafted Silvally necessarily, but Type Null just doesn't really have a lot of options. Togetic is not super threatening. It's obviously very bulky redirection. That part of it is definitely threatening. It gets Tailwind by transfer, so it's a little bit better in this format than it is in VGC. So it does have it is kind of threatening as a support and redirection mon, but unlike its evolved form Togekiss, it really cannot. It doesn't have the same kind of damage output, and it actually does not. I believe it doesn't get Air Slash either, unfortunately. So there are a few weaknesses in the Potatoes threats, but they do have some very big threats. Their draft grade was an A minus. We really liked the way a lot of this stuff went, with some minor exceptions. The snatching up the Urshifu first round, that's clearly a powerful pick, especially the Gmax variant, especially with Sand. You can with the Gmax move, you can break through Protect, and you won't be overriding your own Sand. I think that's very noteworthy. I actually normally I think I would have liked to see. I think I would have liked to see the Sand Setter being picked immediately after the Sand Rush Pokemon here. Instead, they chose Excadrill round 2, skipped around, and went Gigalith round 4. But in this scenario, I actually think that's really smart. Mostly because Follow Me users were getting picked up pretty quick, and they used one of their first picks in the early part of the draft to snatch one up. And they knew that by the time it got back to them, there was probably at least one Sand Setter left. There were no other Sand Rush Pokemon that had been drafted by that point. Actually, I think there are no other Sand Rush Pokemon that were drafted at all.
No.
I don't think anybody has Stoutland or Midday Lycanroc. So they kind of knew that Sand was probably pretty safe, especially given that there were 2 A-tier Sandstream Pokemon that they could pick up. So they figured, even if somebody snatches that Gigalith, we can go Hippowdon.
Yeah.
But they didn't even need to do that. They actually got Gigalith round 4. So that, I think, is maybe a little bit, at first glance, that particular order of those Pokemon, maybe a little bit counterintuitive, but I think it's really smart. I really, really like that. That was actually, even if that seems like kind of a minor detail, it was actually a significant part of why we graded them so highly. I like the addition of Slowbro afterward to pair with Gigalith to begin forming kind of a Trick Room mode. I think Darmanitan probably should have been drafted earlier. Type Null, like I mentioned, it's not really much of a threat. I don't really know what it's doing here. I don't really know why they drafted it at all, frankly. I'm curious to see what they can do with it. But I think if they were going to take it, it should have been a little bit lower on their list. I think Darmanitan would be a much more important Pokemon for their draft. So that's basically why we gave them an A minus. A lot of good decisions, particularly the order of Excadrill, Togetic, and Gigalith, and they ended up building a pretty strong team and got some decent C tiers down near the bottom as well. I'm curious about the Exeggutor. Drapion, I know, can do some stuff with that sniper set, like I mentioned. But yeah, pretty solid draft.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, we gave them an overall grade of an A minus. We really like this draft in general. We look at this team, and you see a lot of different versatile options that they have. You have the Gmax Urshifu. It has 97 base speed, I believe. That's a really good speed stat in this format. And then if you need to go faster than that, it's very easy to get that Excadrill up there and just have the sand mode that's going to go next to it. The Togetic is a good redirector in general. I mean, yes, you could argue that they went a little high for a B tier, but when you really need that redirection, it's like what Matt was kind of hitting on. That's when you have to go for it. You just have to grab what you need to, and when you're looking at it and going, we can either get Hippowdon or Gigalith. Absolutely, like either of those fits in great. The Gigalith obviously is the one that you want, and to be able to get the one that you want, either way, it really showed their ability to draft here, and just overall, we really think that this is going to be one of the top teams in the league. So we're really excited to see how both Alyssa and Henry can handle this. To jump into the pros real quick, go ahead, Matt.
I really liked their speed distribution here, and I think Gigalith is actually a pretty huge part of that. To start off with, they have a few good like middling to fast speed stats. In the the high 80s and the 90s, they've got Urshifu at base 97, Excadrill base 88, I believe. Darmanitan base 95. I think Drapion is also base 95. Might be 90, but I'm pretty sure it's 95. Yeah. And then those are going to be pretty powerful with the Tailwind coming out of the Togetic. And then of course Excadrill, that base 88 in Sand is going to be very powerful. And then they have a slow mode as well. Type Null is in a bit of an awkward spot. Its speed is somewhere in the 50s. I think it's 58 or something like that. Or I think it's 59, but it's a little bit awkward. Executor obviously slow. Pretty sure it's base 45. You got base 30 on Slowbro. Base 25 on Gigalith. I think is absolutely fantastic to underspeed. Like since kind of the standard for a lot of Trick Room sweepers is going to be that base 30. Stuff like Snorlax and Copperajah and Amoonguss not being a sweeper, but a Pokemon that likes to function in Trick Room. There's a lot of stuff like that's going to be at base 30 that Gigalith can outspeed with Trick Room up. And even Togetic, if you're not facing down any particularly slow Trick Room Pokemon on the other side of the field, it's base 40. Has access to After You, so even if you get caught with something like Excadrill in Sand, your opponent set up Trick Room, Togetic might actually be able to help out there with that After You tech. So I really like the speed distribution, especially with the kind of speed control that they have.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too that we liked about this was the combination of B tiers that they used. A lot of the times it's really tough to get Pokemon that are really going to synergize well with your team in those lower tiers, and a lot of times you have to compromise and get things that maybe aren't ideal or aren't optimal, so to speak. But grabbing the Galarian Slowbro to be able to set Trick Room up and also have the ability to kind of put out some type of offense next to the Gigalith, and then pairing that with the Darmanitan, and then also having the Togetic there, which is, in our opinion, Follow Me is really, really, really valuable. And to go into B tier and grab a really good Follow Me user in Togetic, and then have, in my opinion, a great mid to late game sweeper in Darmanitan, to where once the Sand Rush is over, once Excadrill has done what it needed to do, and Urshifu's fainted because it's already done what it needed to do. Darmanitan is one of those Pokemon that with the Choice Scarf, or even just by itself, just at base 95 speed, which is a great speed tier, or a great speed stat to kind of hit, it could really just clean up a lot of things with Sheer Force, Flare Blitz, and just put down enough damage to where you just win games just because you did enough damage to where nothing that they can switch in could really take a Flare Blitz from Darmanitan. And I think that combination and being able to use your B tiers in a good way to synergize with some of your higher tier picks really shows their ability to draft here. And then you also have the solid Trick Room mode where you, like Matt kind of touched on, the Gigalith is obviously a threat. The Galarian Slowbro can be ran either physical or special, so you can it has a decent variety of moves that you can use. And then, like Matt kind of alluded to, even with Quick Claw, it really doesn't matter if there's Trick Room up or not. You can, with its ability, you can start getting off attacks whether you're the fastest thing or not. So I think with that, and then we'll see how the Alolan Executor does. That's probably the iffiest part about it, and that's why we call it a solid Trick Room mode and not a great Trick Room mode, because you have the Gigalith and the Slowbro, which definitely have potential, and then as Matt kind of alluded to, if Togetic is there, and you can potentially underspeed things, go for an after you with Excadrill and start launching off these max Steel Spikes or max Quakes to kind of outlast those Trick Room turns and kind of give your defenses a boost, and then be able to sweep in the later games after those Trick Room turns and they thought they were going to put down a bunch of pressure on you, but you ended up being able to boost your defenses enough to power through the Trick Room and have stuff like G-Max or the Urshifu, just, Rapid Strike Urshifu, coming in and just cleaning up because they weren't expecting you to survive that long. So I think, solid Trick Room mode, not a great Trick Room mode, but good enough to definitely where they can bring it and win games just because they're so prepared for the Sand mode that they're not expecting that Gigalith is going to be the one that's going to come in and just take them down completely.
As for the cons, one of the cons I found to be most significant with this team is that type null, which I've touched on a little bit already, but I personally am very, very skeptical of this pick, largely because it just doesn't feel like it can really do much. Usually when you pick a not fully evolved Pokemon, you want to look at its fully evolved form and kind of look at the not fully evolved form as sort of just maybe a worse version of that gets a lot of the same stuff. Maybe you can run Eviolite, maybe it's frail enough that you need a Focus Sash on it. Type Null is very bulky with the Eviolite. It has those base 95s across the board except in speed, but in HP defense, special defense, that's going to make for a very, very bulky Pokemon, like a Porygon 2 level bulk. The problem is that I don't really see what it's going to do. It can kind of sit on the field and take hits, but it's going to struggle to find some kind of utility while it's there. There's so much that Silvally has access to that Type Null just doesn't. There's a massive disparity between these two Pokemon. There's all kinds of coverage like Flamethrower, Ice Beam, Surf, Thunderbolt, Flash Cannon, a bunch of stuff like that Type Null just does not have access to. Even really great like damage control and utility options like Snarl and Parting Shot. Type Null does not have that stuff. It doesn't have one of Silvally's trademarks is kind of that stab explosion. Type Null does not have that. When I was looking through its move pool, it has okay coverage. It's got stuff like Air Slash and X Scissor, Iron Head, but you're I'm not really sure what you're gonna be doing with that, especially if you're running an Eviolite instead of some kind of damage boosting item. Your damage output's not really gonna be that great. You don't have the opportunity to change your type like you do with Silvally. You don't have access to that newly buffed 120 base power multi attack. I hate to say this, but I wonder if they drafted Type Null thinking that it could do a lot of the same stuff that Silvally could do, and perhaps were disappointed when they learned that wasn't the case. I'm very skeptical of this pick. It seems out of place. Don't know what it's going to do here. I don't expect to see it much in their matches. And the last con being, I think water types are going to have kind of an advantage against this draft, especially bulky ones that are not going to go down to like big neutral hits. Like if you're facing down something like an Inteleon and you have Sand Up, that's probably okay because your Excadrill can outspeed and blow it up with a big Max Quake. But if you're facing down some bulky water types like maybe the Kanto Slowbro or Slowking or something like that.
Primarina.
Primarina may be an issue. Primarina's, it's going to be it's going to be hit neutral by both of Excadrill's stabs, so that might be slightly easier to deal with. But there's there are no electric Pokemon on this draft. The only grass type is Alolan Exeggutor, and I don't really expect to see that in most matches. Even if it's there, there's a reason it's C tier. It's not a top tier grass type. It's all of pretty much every water type has access to ice moves, which are just going to absolutely blow up Exeggutor. And a well played water type can tear through this sand mode. Both Excadrill and Gigalith are weak to water attacks, of course. They don't have any electric or grass coverage. Urshifu gets Thunder Punch, but it's a fairly low base power move. It's not stab. There's not a whole lot here that they can use to effectively deal with water types, and I wonder exactly how they're going to build against Pokemon like that.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, since we really don't have the potatoes here to answer any of these questions, we're just gonna have to kind of make guesses. But one of the things that we do expect from them is it does seem like they built a team this year that is going to contend for playoffs. It's something that they've been so close to achieving, and it seems like they're right on the precipice of making that jump from a good team to a consistent playoff team. I think one of the things that they didn't do this time that they did the previous 2 years is they drafted a U tier. They did not draft one this time. I think it resulted in a much more balanced draft overall. This is definitely their best draft that they've had in their 3 years that they've been in this league. So it's going to be really exciting to see what they can do. Henry and Alyssa are very good players, both Worlds competitors, right?
Yes,
yeah.
I believe so.
So both recent Worlds competitors. So definitely, it's going to be exciting to see what they can do with this team. Do you have anything to add?
I think we're good.
All right. Well, we weren't able to get them, but actually, we're not going to be able to get the next people either. We were going to try and talk to the reigning champs, but we're going to just talk about their draft. So after this, we'll be talking about Team Pussy and their draft, and we'll see how we think they're going to be holding up this year and defending their crown. So stick around, and we'll have that for you later.